everybody. It's nice to see you out here in the sunshine. All right, my name is Teresa Chandler, and I'm a deputy city manager. I've been with the city for about a little over 8 years. I came in through the health department, and I've been in the city manager's office for about 4 years now. As Stephanie mentioned, I have been an incident commander in our homeless emergency response over this last year, a co-incident commander with our health director, who is no longer here. But we did a lot of important work together while she was here. And then I also oversee and support our Office of Equity and other human service related matters in the city manager's office. So really looking forward to having this conversation with all of you this morning. But before we get going, I would actually like to invite up our council member from this district, Council Member Megan Kerr.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. It's so good to see you all here on this beautiful morning. We were talking about if you stand close enough to the mulch pile, you can inhale the eucalyptus from the mulch pile, and it's good for our senses and good for our energy. I want to thank you for coming out today to find out more about this project that the city's been working on for several years. You'll hear more technical details, obviously, from the team from the health department. I want to thank all of them for being out here today to answer the questions that you may have and be part of this ongoing conversation in our longer conversation around addressing homelessness here in the city of Long Beach. The Tiny Homes Project is one that the city's been working on for a while, had a location that unfortunately was no longer viable. And when the city several weeks ago finished identifying locations, landed on this space here in District 5. I'm born and raised here in the Bixby Knolls area. I went to St. Anthony High School, so I spent a lot of years traversing this route back and forth around this commercial space and underutilized space. So looking forward to talking about how we can put it to use over the next 15 years to help those who are most chronically homeless. We know, at least in our council office, and I know some of my colleagues, some of the biggest issues and most burning questions we get from constituents is around how can we be of support to the unhoused community here in Long Beach. And this is one of those projects that is a great interim project to get people into permanent housing. I know we're going to talk a lot about locations, and we're going to maybe hear that maybe this isn't the ideal location. We know the ideal location for our unhoused neighbors is in permanent supportive housing, but this project is one of those ways that we can get people there more quickly. So anxious to join the conversation and looking forward to hearing from the team and talking with you today. Again, thank you for being here.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman. What's really important, I'm so grateful to our council members that it's so important as we're looking at projects to support our unhoused neighbors that we can spread that wide across all of our council districts here in the city. So we're really grateful to you for your support on this project. Thank you. All right, so for context, so as many of you are aware, back in January of this year, our council proclaimed a local emergency to respond to our homeless crisis. So we know that it's a crisis not just in Long Beach, but a national crisis as well. So it's really important that Long Beach also leaned into this work and really made sure that we're focusing on how to really get folks into permanent supportive housing. Through this effort, we've focused on building the city's overall capacity to address not only what's currently out on the streets, but getting to the root causes and to make sure that people don't fall into homelessness in the first place. So we really focused on our overarching goals. We've got motorcycles going through the intersection right now. There's a lot of them. Let me give it just a minute. That was a wow, they must be going to a convention or something. It's a lot. Sorry. We work with it. Okay. So our overarching goals of the emergency include increasing funding and resources available to implement new programs. A lot of these new programs are pilot programs, so we're trying through trial and error, trying to see what's working, and for Long Beach specifically. We are speeding up our overall response, and we're creating long-term goals and organizational structures to sustain our work beyond the emergency. So we're not going to be an emergency forever. We are going to be moving on to the next phase very soon, but we will still be in an urgent response to address homelessness. But this emergency has allowed us to put things in place to really move us along in that effort. So to date, we have added service capacity by adding 85 new interim beds with another 120 in planning or construction, increasing our funding capacity. So we've jumped up to $65 million identified through multiple resources or multiple sources, which is huge for our city. We have permanently housed 582 people using our emergency housing vouchers. And because we did such a great job with those housing vouchers, we are getting more vouchers from HUD, which is also great news. We've improved our internal and external coordination. So there's a lot of coordination that happens not only through health department and public works, but all of our city departments. And we cannot do that alone without our community partners, our businesses, our nonprofits, our faith organizations. So there's been a lot of coordination efforts there. We've improved outreach through our mobile access center. We now have 2 mobile access centers that partner along with our multi-service center that's located in West Long Beach. And we're seeing an increased rate of service acceptance because of those mobile access centers, which is amazing. We have sped up the affordable housing development timeline from 6 to 12 months to 60 to 90 days, which we absolutely could not do without being in an emergency state. And through events like this, we are increasing our community engagement at every corner that we can. So with that, I'm going to hand the mic over to Paul, and he's going to give an overview of our tiny home project. And all of the signs are falling.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Duncan. I am the Homeless Services Bureau Manager with the City of Long Beach Department of Health and Human Services. In my role, I oversee both the direct work that the City of Long Beach provides through outreach, our access center, and then oversee our team that does our administrative work and bringing forward new projects, contracting with a number of different nonprofits for services that range from shelter to permanent housing. So giving some background on, why take an approach of creating a tiny home project. This is a model that we've looked at many different things. This is one model and a number of different approaches that we are taking. So as we look at this as an emergency situation, really we have been looking at what is the way that we can bring on new sites as quickly as possible, looking at both buildings that currently exist that can be modified and changed, whether that be an existing hotel or motel and purchasing that, purchasing a warehouse and modifying that. So just trying to find ways and approaches that can be brought on quickly, as well as looking at cost effectiveness within that. So this is our first tiny home project. It is the one that we have planned at this moment. We do not have anything other ones within this model in the work. I know that was a question. However, we have several other shelters that are breaking ground later within the next several months. So we've purchased the 702 Anaheim, which is near the 710 off of Anaheim Boulevard. And that will be a ongoing year-round shelter. We've bought what used to be the Luxury Inn up in North Long Beach off Long Beach Boulevard, and the 710. And then we've also been working on modifying the Best Western, and we have a youth shelter that's also being developed off of PCH. And then we have a number of different permanent supportive housing projects that'll open up later this year that private nonprofit developers are building. So there's one near the traffic circle. There is one off of Anaheim over by MacArthur Park. There's one off of MLK and PCH. And then one over within the Century Villages of Cabrillo on the west side off of PCH. There are a couple other projects that'll be coming on within the next year as well. One over off 7th and PCH, and then one off of Anaheim and Atlantic. Both were Project Home Key hotel/motel conversions through the county. So really the effort is to try to find locations throughout the city to bring forward projects, both from the shelter side as well as the permanent housing side. But within the tiny homes approach, really looking at this, we look at this as a model where we can bring new construction relatively quick when we look at manufacturing and building processes, the permitting processes. Um, when modular construction is used, there's a different permitting process that allows us to streamline some of the steps and bring things in more cost effective. Uh, in that with the modulars themselves are already under construction. So once the site setup is complete, it will be relatively quick for those modulars to go in once the site is prepared. So that is really kind of what the model is really about, is bringing it forward at a cost-effective model. So when we were looking at building our first tiny home project, really one thing that was important to us was getting the feedback of people that would be using these modular shelter tiny home sites, and really understanding what they were looking for within the project. So there are a number of things that were identified that were really factored into what we looked for when we went out looking for our modular shelter provider. And as we looked at building this out, and we're going to touch on those throughout this project or our presentation this morning. But some of the things that were most important in their identification was having their own restrooms, ensuring that the site has safety and security on board in place. Those were the top two requests. So really making sure that those are grounded with what we're bringing forward. As we were developing initially, it was mentioned we were looking at the MSC, and we had identified some funding through the American Rescue Plan. So we had some dollars that were coming through HUD that were specifically set aside within that round that we were going to utilize to develop this out. In that time that we were working on that initial planning, the state allowed for additional funding proposals through Project Homekey, which is their effort to bring on additional quick speed projects, a lot of motel conversions, but modular was allowed within that. So really this allowed us to bring in some additional funding to really develop out a holistic site. So that kind of shifted and has really developed to where we are at this moment. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Teresa to discuss location.
Thank you, Paul. All right, so the reason that we're here today is to discuss the plans, and we're going to go really into detail. But how do we arrive at this decision? So there's been a lot of questions about why here and how did we get here. So we initially planned, as Paul mentioned, to locate the tiny homes at the multi-service center. That was the most ideal location for us. Our staff could be right there on site. We wouldn't have to bring in extra buildings that could support staff because we had the multi-service center there. But due to several unforeseen environmental factors, the location was no longer a viable option, unfortunately. So over the past several months, staff have looked at every available lot in the city, from public to private. So we have a team that dives in. They know every nook and cranny of Long Beach, what's available and what's not through our business partnerships and also what we have as a city. As you can imagine, the private lots were very expensive, and many city-owned lots did not meet the criteria that we were looking for to support this project. So the criteria that we looked for, Paul mentioned some, but paved roads, a concrete foundation, located relatively close to services and other resources, electrical capabilities, and available for a long-term use of 15 years. So this lot on the southeast corner of Spring Street in California fits most, if not all, of our criteria for this tiny home community. This site has sat vacant for several years. It has no current plans in place that would be impacted by the construction of the tiny homes. The construction will include permanent infrastructure that can be converted into a programmatical space. And the site is located outside of downtown in West Long Beach, where most of these projects are historically located. And we want to also, what's really important about the infrastructure and the space is that people can have access to transportation, to food options, to grocery, to other amenities that they need. So I will pass it back to Paul. He's going to talk about the construction.
All right. Before we jump straight into the construction, just wanted to cover a couple of design considerations as we were developing our request for proposals and looking for the manufacturing of the units that are going to be on this site. So, um, within that, we laid out a number of different things that we are looking for within our RFP for potential companies that manufacture these types of tiny homes. So, some of the stuff that we were looking for was looking at heating, ventilation, the HVAC system, how that's set up, ensuring that during the wintertime people have good heating, in the summertime they have good ability to cool off, that the units did have built-in fire suppression. So this is one thing that we've seen in several other projects throughout the region or throughout the West Coast, is there have been several fires where that has affected. So we want to ensure that units are safe, and that if something were to happen, that there is a system in place to limit any damage that occurs, as well as safety to life. And then just looking at the overall durability, along with the requirement that each unit have a restroom with a shower within that. So within that, we released our RFP. We did receive 4 proposals, and these were evaluated looking at a number of different factors, all of which included what was just covered within stuff that we were looking at specifically called out. And within that 4 proposals, we did select Connect Shelters. So the panel, in reviewing those 4 proposals, identified this vendor as best meeting those requirements, with also remaining cost effective in consideration to all of the elements within the RFP. So this was put forward to the city council, and really, in looking at it, we were looking at something to ensure that they were durable, that they could be transferred from one site to another site in the case that, at some time a site was going to be transitioned or used for something else. So these units that we are looking that we are in construction are scheduled to last up to 50 years. So they are pretty durable. They will last a good amount of time. They are sturdy materials, and the units themselves can be pretty easily transferred by putting back on the back of a semi truck and moving to another location in moving them. So it allows us flexibility over time. Construction of this lot will look a little bit different than what was planned at the MSC site. The space is larger, but at the same time, we do not have the benefit of our access center being on this location. So there's some additional construction stuff that is added into that. That includes the creation of an office for case management, areas where people can heat up food, and then communal gathering space, and a restroom and laundry facility with that in that administrative building. So that is on one of the boards, and you can kind of see what's envisioned for that administrative space to ensure that services are being provided on site. And then additional work to this site will include fencing around the perimeter. So we have fencing along the street side. However, there will be additional fencing that goes on the interior to define the space within the program. We'll have installation of lighting throughout the site, a bicycle, places for people to lock their bicycle, parking stalls for staff and anybody living within the program that does have a vehicle, and then installation of additional green space and places for people to be outside that is conducive to being able to stay within the program area. Additionally, the plumbing and electrical for the administrative building and the 33 units that are being created will take place. And then, as identified, these units are being built off-site as we currently speak. So once the site is prepared, they will be brought onto site and hooked into the work that has been done. The expected timeline for this construction is sometime in mid-2024, to the beginning of 2025. We're still working through and need to get a construction company in place that will do the work on the site and setting up the plumbing, building out the administrative building, and everything else. So, depending on getting that online, that'll happen again sometime between mid next year and early 2025. Um, so, the in looking at, oh, skip the page. And kind of shifting, that's our overall construction, but want to shift over to our services that will be provided on site. That way, just to understand the program itself a little more beyond just the buildings. So, early on within the MSC, really, it made sense for the city to hold the project itself. And we were looking at doing services directly. Being off site at another location, we will be looking to select a provider. So we'll be going through an RFP process to receive in proposals and then select a provider that can then provide services on the site to the people that are living here. The RFP will be put out, and really just trying to get as many providers that might be interested to put in proposals. So once that's out, we'll be making sure that we communicate that out to our community at large. And as we look at the overall operations and who this is serving, people that are receiving services here and receive one of the units will be selected through our overall efforts within engaging people that are unsheltered. So this includes our multi-service center where people are able to come in. This includes going out and doing outreach, our mobile access centers that Teresa had mentioned. So people that are engaged are put into our coordinated entry system. And we have a matching process for some of our shelter units, especially those where it is an individualized space. So this will be prioritized on a number of factors, including who's been experiencing homelessness the longest. So the the goal is to identify really people that have been out there for a while that are working and engaged towards their permanent housing. So each of the people going in here will also be within our coordinated entry system, and having been experiencing homelessness for a longer time, will be towards the top of the list of being matched to permanent housing. So really our goal is to move people through this project as quickly as possible and get them into a permanent unit where they have a lease and ongoing supportive services within their housing. So we, this might be as short as a month or two for some people. It could take longer for other people. We've seen some people with a voucher, it taking up to a year for them to find and be able to utilize that voucher. But really our goal is to, as quickly as possible, get people from our tiny home project into permanent housing. Of the units, there are 33 units. 6 of the units will be ADA accessible. So somebody has, mobility impairment, they have visual impairment or a hearing impairment, those units are set up to provide support. They are a little bit more spacious, have a little more room in the restroom, and a couple other features. So we really want to ensure that we're able to serve people with a wide range of needs. Each unit will have its own private restroom and shower. And then looking at the services on site, there will be 24-hour a day staffing on site with case management throughout the day, and then security that is also on site to provide support. Participants will receive 3 meals a day. And as each person is being engaged in their case management, working on developing a housing plan with connections to permanent housing resources, and then also engaging and linking people to a wide range of other supportive services that it's not going to be possible to have on site with the size of this program, looking at things like mental and physical health, as well as substance use, ensuring that people are being linked to their benefits, whether it be through the Department of Social Services or our Social Security system. So We do have additional mobile programs that are coming online, so it might be possible that we're coming here, once or twice a month. But really, the majority of those more intensive services will be provided off-site, supporting with people with transportation, and lastly, laundry services. Um, so again, people are being matched through our coordinated entry system. It's not a site where people will be able to walk up and just say, "Hey, I want a bed." If somebody does walk up saying, "Hey, I want a bed," the staff on site will be trained to know, oh, you're looking for services. Here's how you can access services. You can go to our mobile access center, which has, stops throughout the city over the week, or you can go to the multi-service center, and really trying to get people connected in. Um, and then um, lastly, some of the things that, we often get concerns about and hear about regularly is what's the process if somebody's being problematic, they're not following the rules, they're creating safety concerns or issues within the program or within the neighbors. So we do have processes in place. There are some recent changes within state law on what that looks like. If somebody is acting violently within the program or to the neighboring community, that will be something that will be dealt with quickly. The person will be exited and linked with other programming. It's not that they're will not receive shelter anywhere, but really trying to link them with somewhere else and talking about, the behavioral issues. If it's other things that are coming up, the services will talk about, what's occurring, ensuring that, you know, the participants aware of the expectations of the programs, the rules, and behaviors. And if that continues to happen, the person will be informed that due to behavior that they're being referred to another program. Within state law, they do have to be given 30 days notice. So in that 30 days, we'll work with linking them to another project where they have a bed available and working with services. So really our goal is to ensure that that is a positive environment, both for the people that are living on site as well as the neighborhood around. Um, so um, Lastly, we will have continuing ongoing information. There is a landing page that is being created specifically for this project. Um, so that will be open to anybody that is wanting to get ongoing information or looking for more.